Che Guevara, 14 disturbing facts about the revolutionary icon. Ernesto Che Guevara is a deeply polarizing figure in history. To some, he's a symbol of rebellion, to others, a ruthless extremist. The Argentine-born revolutionary played a pivotal role in the Cuban Revolution and other global uprisings. However, his legacy is riddled with controversies. This video delves into 14 lesser-known and contentious aspects of Guevara's life, showcasing the complexities of his character and actions. Fact number 1. La Cabana's dark reign. La Cabana Fortress Prison stands as a testament to the brutal aftermath of the Cuban Revolution. Under Che Guevara's supervision from January to November 1959, this fortress became a place of systematic executions. As the appointed military commander, Guevara took it upon himself to rid Cuba of those he considered enemies of the revolution. Estimates suggest that under his watch, between 55 to 105 people were executed without proper judicial processes. Witnesses and historians recount the nightly firing squads, showcasing Guevara's ruthlessness in solidifying revolutionary power. Number 2. Establishing the UMAPs, Guevara's legacy of forced labor. Guevara's vision for a new socialist Cuba also involved creating forced labor camps, known as military units to aid production, UMAPs. Established in the mid-1960s, these camps were designed to re-educate those who were viewed as threats or were not aligned with Fidel Castro's regime. While Guevara was not solely responsible for their creation, he was a staunch advocate for their establishment. Many dissidents, Jehovah's Witnesses, and others labeled as counter-revolutionaries faced forced labor under harsh conditions in these camps. Number 3. Advocating for global annihilation. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 was a tense 13-day confrontation between the US and the Soviet Union, bringing the world to the brink of nuclear war. As the crisis neared its resolution with a negotiated agreement, Guevara expressed strong discontent. He firmly believed that the cause of communism and the destruction of imperialism were worth the price of nuclear warfare. In his words, even if the fallout had meant Cuba's obliteration, such a war would have been beneficial if it also wiped out capitalism. Number 4. A regime's homophobic policies. Guevara's disdain for homosexuality is evident in the policies and views he championed during his time in the Cuban leadership. He perceived homosexuals as antithetical to the revolutionary spirit, labeling them as degenerates. Under his influence, gay men, in particular, found themselves facing severe discrimination. Many were sent to the aforementioned UMAP labor camps, where they endured forced labor and attempts at re-education. Guevara's stance paved the way for widespread institutional homophobia in Cuba, which persisted for decades. Number 5. Guevara's tinged journals. Ernesto Che Guevara is celebrated by many for his Pan-American vision, but a closer look at his diaries reveals a disturbing pattern of racial prejudice. In his chronicles during his travels through South America, particularly in his motorcycle diaries, Guevara referred to black individuals using derogatory terms, questioning their work ethic and capabilities. For instance, he described them as those magnificent examples of the African race who have conserved their racial purity by a lack of affinity with washing. Such remarks starkly contrast his later association with anti-imperialist movements, making his early biases all the more glaring. Number 6. Guevara's global ambitions. Guevara's revolutionary spirit was not confined to Cuba's borders. Eager to export the Cuban Revolution model, he actively engaged in guerrilla training and insurgency strategies across the globe. His involvement spanned from the Congo to Bolivia. In Bolivia, Guevara tried to spark a peasant-based revolution, similar to Cuba's, which eventually led to his capture and death. His desires for global uprisings were not just ideological but had real, tangible implications. Had his efforts been more successful, it could have destabilized multiple nations, causing untold suffering and death. Number 7. Disregarding fundamental rights. The principle of habeas corpus has been a cornerstone of just judicial systems worldwide, ensuring that an individual cannot be held in detention without sufficient cause. However, for Guevara, this principle was more of a hindrance than a right. In his view, the revolutionary justice system should be swift and unencumbered by such bourgeois principles. His stance endangered countless individuals who, without the protection of habeas corpus, could be and were detained without adequate evidence or trial. Number 8. Children on the battlefront. The use of child soldiers is a grave violation of international law and a tragedy for the affected youths. Guevara, in his quest for revolutionary success, overlooked this ethical and legal boundary. He recruited adolescents, some as young as 16, training them for guerrilla warfare. These children, still in their formative years, were thrust into the harsh realities of combat, often positioned in the most vulnerable locations on the battlefront. This decision reflects Guevara's relentless pursuit of his goals, even at the cost of young lives. Number 9. Unyielding Marxist convictions. Ernesto Che Guevara's rigid adherence to Marxist economics is well documented. As a key figure in post-revolutionary Cuba, Guevara was entrusted with several economic portfolios, including the National Bank's head. His strict, almost dogmatic approach to Marxism, however, proved problematic. For instance, his policies abolished monetary incentives for workers, replacing them with moral incentives. Such strategies, rooted in his unwavering Marxist beliefs, often failed to recognize economic realities and led to inefficiencies and stagnation, causing tangible hardships for the Cuban populace. Number 10. Propaganda under the guise of education. The Cuban literacy program, initiated in 1961, has been internationally lauded for its success in drastically reducing illiteracy rates in Cuba. However, beneath this achievement lay a more insidious agenda. Guevara, along with other revolutionary leaders, ensured that the curriculum was steeped in revolutionary propaganda. Textbooks and reading materials were not just tools for literacy but also means to indoctrinate the Cuban populace. The narratives were strategically designed to glorify the revolution and its leaders, including Guevara himself, while demonizing perceived enemies. Number 11. Admiration for a tyrant. Joseph Stalin's reign is notorious for its purges, famines, and gulags, leading to the death and suffering of millions. Yet, Guevara, fully cognizant of these atrocities, often voiced his admiration for the Soviet leader. In various speeches and writings, he endorsed Stalin's methods as necessary for the advancement of communism, even if it meant oppression and widespread terror. Guevara's admiration raises uncomfortable questions about how far he himself might have gone, given the power and circumstances. Number 12. Crackdown on religious institutions. Cuba, with its strong Catholic roots, underwent a seismic shift post-revolution. Under Guevara and other revolutionary leaders, the state adopted a staunchly atheistic stance. Guevara viewed religious institutions, especially the Catholic Church, as inherently counter-revolutionary. This resulted in a systematic suppression of religious practices and institutions. Churches were frequently confiscated and repurposed. Priests, nuns, and other religious figures faced harassment. Many were arrested on trumped-up charges, while others were compelled to leave Cuba or face persecution. This hardline approach not only estranged the regime from many Cubans but also drew international criticism, especially from predominantly Catholic nations. Number 13. Paranoia and purging within the ranks. In the volatile aftermath of the Cuban Revolution, loyalty was paramount. Guevara, ever vigilant for signs of treachery, often took extreme measures against those he deemed potentially disloyal. Several revolutionaries who had once fought side by side with Guevara and Castro found themselves at the wrong end of this suspicion. Accusations ranged from collaborating with the CIA to mere ideological differences. Huber Matos, a commander who had played a significant role in the revolution, is a prime example. Disenchanted with the increasing communist tilt, Matos was arrested and sentenced to 20 years on Guevara's insistence, underlining the latter's ruthlessness when consolidating power. Number 14. A relentless guerrilla commander. Guevara's leadership style in battle was characterized by its extreme measures. During his guerrilla campaigns, both in Cuba and abroad, he was known for his intolerance toward any perceived weakness or betrayal. Deserters, suspected spies, or those simply accused of lacking revolutionary zeal faced dire consequences. Often, Guevara ordered these individuals to be executed summarily, eschewing trials or any form of due process. This approach was rooted in his belief that the revolution's success depended on unwavering commitment and that any hint of betrayal, no matter how minor, could jeopardize the entire mission. This ruthlessness, while effective in instilling fear, also painted a picture of a leader willing to sacrifice individuals for a broader ideological cause.